One of the first things that I wanted to ask you, and just thank you for being with us today. As I said, he is an extraordinary young man who's really doing a lot of great things in the community and on a national and international level. You can say good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Reverend Aker. I've known him since I've been a kid, and see Lawrence and the Aker family and the Cornerstone family. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us. One of the first things I want to ask you on this day, what is it that drives your social energy? You are in protest movements, you are involved in the civil rights movement, voting rights, you're there, anything going on. Where does that come from?
Well, I think it comes from my parents decided to move to Orangeburg, South Carolina, and that's where I was raised, one of the blackest cities in America, and the history there, February 8th, 1968, the Orangeburg Massacre, where students were protesting to integrate a bowling alley, and they were faced with a hail of bullets for over 12 seconds, and 3 students ended up being killed. So being grounded in the history, also learning about the lynching that took place in Orangeburg. Over 8 people were lynched during the lynching era, but we are a mighty people, and the history of resistance. So growing up in a community like that, you know, I credit my parents, I credit my family for teaching me my history and teaching us that we are a powerful people. Our history started before we were kidnapped and displaced to America, and learning the history of Denmark Vesey and Harriet Tubman and Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, that we don't have to settle for the crumbs that America gives us. We deserve a full meal. And so I think being grounded in that history, the students at South Carolina State Claflin that resisted, that inspired me when I saw injustice not only in Orangeburg but across the country and across the world, to declare myself a human rights defender. Human rights should be afforded to all people across this land. So.
Okay. And that is certainly your family is engrafted in social justice and the church world. Could you just tell us what role your faith has played in your development and any challenge that you've had and that faith that's helped you cover it? I remember our last participant, Dr. Fremborg, was here, and he's one of the leading medical workers in the United States. He was known as just the black guy. I know when you were in law school, you were at a big reception and a lot of dignitaries, and they thought you were one of the waiters. And so tell us something about what helped you overcome your faith in challenges.
Yeah. I think you know, being grounded in the church and finding out about Black liberation theology. So when I was in law school or whenever I faced racism, I reflected on the example of Jesus. Sometimes we focus on Jesus coming down to earth, but we don't necessarily focus on who did he come as. And I think he came as a working class person. He goes to Nazareth, place similar to places that we're from, and identifies himself with the sufferers, and decides to pick up his cross and to stand up against injustice. And so anytime I faced racism or faced pushback, I remind myself that greater is in me than is in the world, right? So when you are looking down upon me, you have to understand that there's something greater in me. That same determination that allowed our people to stand forth in front of Jim Crow, stand forth in front of chattel slavery, stand forth now currently in front of mass incarceration, standing forth in front of police brutality, and declaring that we want freedom and justice, right? So that same type of dignity and respect, I am somebody, right? When we're saying black power, I am somebody, I am a man. Those things that we are declaring is that something greater is in us, right? You can't take away our human dignity. And so those are some of the things that help grounded me. And I think some of the challenges, I lost my brother in 2012 in a tragic accident. And he was someone who instilled all of these things into me. When I was when I was 15, teaching me about James Baldwin, teaching me about Dr. Cornel West. He was only 21, but he had just a spirit of himself to instill in me my history, so that even today I'm still pulling from those lessons. I'm still pulling from that example that allows me to move forward.
Amen. Amen. Sir, that was a devastating loss to your family, but certainly your faith has anchored you and pulling your family through, and you dedicate a lot of your work to his memory. What could you say, just lastly, would you say to other young adults who are watching you right now? Some are streaming on Facebook, YouTube. What would you say to that young person who's trying to find their niche, trying to find their way, trying to get accepted into grad school, trying to apply to undergraduate school? What would you say to that individual?
Well, what I would say to our generation, and I think this applies to any generation, so last week as a Fannie Lou Hamer Fellow, I've been in Mississippi Delta the last 2 weeks, leading a group of young people across the state. We've been doing mutual aid work and have been responding to different issues and organizing. And we actually went to Meridian a few days ago. As you know, Cheney, Goodman, Stromer, 3 students that were killed June 21st, 1964. We went on the anniversary to the place they were killed. We went to James Cheney's grave, and I read James Cheney's grave. He died. He was killed when he was 21. On his grave, it says, there are those that are alive that have never lived, right? There are those that are dead that will live forever, right? And so when we look at James Cheney, we look at Fannie Lou Hamer, we look at Nat Turner, we look at anybody that has stood for justice and has faced the brutality from white supremacy, we realize the same way that Jesus faced, right, being executed by the state, he came back, right? There's a resurrection. There's a resurrection in James Cheney. Yeah. There's a resurrection in Malcolm X. There's a resurrection in Fannie Lou Hamer. There's a resurrection when we plant our lives and pick up a cross and plant a seed that continues to live forever. That's why we still declare the name of Dr. King. That's why we still declare the name of those Medgar Evers and many others that stood in the gaps, right? Yeah. And so that's what I would say to young people. And also I would say is, as I mentioned, identifying yourself with the sufferers, is that we cannot continue to have class divide, even in our community, right? Fannie Lou Hamer had a 6th grade education, right? But changed the landscape of this country. No matter what your education level is, no matter what family you come from, no matter how you dress, you have potential in you, right? No matter if you are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, you have potential in you. And so we have to come together as a people, right? Fannie Lou Hamer said, no matter if you had a PhD or no D, whether you went to Morehouse or no house, we're still in this bag together, right? So that's what I would say to young people, is to center and ground yourself in that love ethic for all of our people.
All right, all right. I think he has a bright future. What do you think? Come on, let's give it up for Aaron Greene. Love you, man. Great job. Come on, let's celebrate Aaron. He is doing great things, a mentor to many young people, and he's going to be helping us here with social justice as his schedule allows, interning and helping us on that social front. And so you will be hearing his name again, Aaron Greene. Write it down, write his name down. You will be seeing him, his articles, his journals. He's a freedom fighter and a great scholar. Thank you, thank you.